Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another episode of the Planet FPL Fan View, where I get one of our correspondents onto the podcast to discuss current matters at their club. And to be frank, we really need to have a frank conversation about what's been going on at Tottenham Hotspur. Let me introduce you to Ricky Saunders. How are you, Ricky?
Frankly, I'm doing really well. Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to talk Thomas. We're going to talk Ange, but there was this seismic event still less than a month ago. Sometimes feels like yesterday, sometimes feels like it was already a decade ago when Tottenham won Europa League. We did a preview podcast with our United correspondent, Gary Robinson, and you said, and I'll paraphrase, Ricky, to do you the favour, but you
Okay.
essentially said that if we win, it will be basically one of the best moments of my life, and if we lose, it's the worst season of my life. It was that yo-yo-y in terms of how it was going to be and how we felt, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It really. I mean, I felt when I said it, I felt like I was being a bit dramatic, but no, it was. This is the best season of me as a Tottenham fan, or it's the worst one since we got relegated, which was the year I was born. It all hinged on one game, and it's amazing that something can go either side based on 90 minutes of football. Ridiculous, but we're champions of Europe. Probably the worst game of football I've ever watched. But
Was it? I mean, look, I was in the
it
stadium.
was
You was obviously in a
terrible.
pub somewhere.
It was terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't great, was it? What was your emotions like during the game? I guess
What?
let's take back to the start. Almost. What did you think in the first instance of the team when it dropped? Because obviously Madison, Kulusevski, Bergvall all injured.
Yeah, we knew. I there was rumours that Bergvall had been training. He'd been seen kicking a ball around, and I was not convinced, but I was 70% that he was gonna start potentially, but certainly feature. And when the team dropped and he wasn't even on the bench, I was really surprised by that and disappointed as well because thought he was a real key player. Oh, I thought he would be a key player for us. The fact that the team itself is probably what I'd have picked. Or certainly very close to it. There was no shocks or massive surprises
I
for me. And
suppose
it was
Son not starting was a surprise, wasn't it?
it was a surprise in the sense of obviously he's the captain, he's the the main player, but it wasn't a surprise in terms of his form and potential fitness, injury concerns, little niggly knocks. So I think that was the right thing because we'd have been dragging him off after 60 minutes, or we'd have left him on and he'd have been completely ineffectual for the last half an hour. So I think that was the right move.
Yeah, with Bergvall, obviously the day before he was pictured sitting on the side of the pitch, sitting on the football, watching everyone else train. There was a number of thought it was like a bit of kidology, like he was ready to
Yeah.
go and Tottenham were just trying to hide it.
And I was really excited by that because it sounds silly to pin all your hopes on an 18-year-old, but he's been so instrumental in the latter part of the season. And if he such a massive boost, he's obviously well respected and liked around the club. His abilities have come on amazingly as he's got used to the pace. And I thought he'd be really useful because I talked on also on the pods that although it's a European final, it's two English teams and it could be paid at a Premier League pace. And because he was now adjusted to that pace, he'd just be really important. And I was nervous anyway, as I think everybody would have been when that dropped. I was really nervous and just before kickoff in the pub. Yeah, a range of emotions, but confidence was probably not one of them, if I'm being honest.
When Johnson scored, or did he score? I'm still not certain, like if he scores or not. I
I,
also don't really care.
I don't care. One of the mates I was with, he's actually a Liverpool fan, ironically, and he had like a big bet builder thing, and one of them was Johnson to score any time, and they paid him out on it. So I thought, okay, that's so they think it's Johnson, but I've looked back at it and I can't see that he ever got a touch to it at all. It just looks pure Luke Shaw.
I think he ends up just about flicking it with pretty much the tip of his boot, which creates this weird
If
kind of spin on it.
if he did touch it,
It's fine.
that the last one, I can't see it. But look, mate, I don't care. It's not
No, but
important.
it summed up the game, didn't it, in
Yeah,
terms of how ugly it was. When we scored, did you feel like we deserved it?
yeah, probably. there was no dominance from either side. I felt we were possibly playing the better stuff or looked more dangerous. I mean, United had a couple of flashes across goal. But yeah, no, I think it was a pretty even game in the first half, but maybe we'd edged it.
Second half, Tottenham went deeper than deep. It's
Mate,
obviously wasn't very Angeable. How did you feel watching along to it? Because the general vibe I've had from people since, and particularly neutrals, it's worth saying, is they didn't think United were going to score. But in the ground, I obviously didn't feel comfortable, and obviously the emotive side to it. How did you feel?
I was nervous. I was really nervous. I remember I looking up, watching a game, and it was obviously Ant should set up differently for the second half, and we were basically going to try and essentially keep a clean sheet for 45 minutes. And that's fine. If we had our best defence on the pitch, so you've got half a chance. And I remember I looked up at the clock, thought, okay, we must be nearly there now. 60 minutes. Oh my God, got another half an hour of this, and it was relentless United, and we didn't really have much attacking threat in that second half. And then as it got later on in the second half, and Vic was dropping a couple of clangers, oh, it's got to happen again, isn't it? The song is right, it's happened again. And I was so nervous. And we weren't really, we had a couple of breakaways and we possibly should have scored really. But yeah, it was worrying. And in hindsight, you look back and were United close to score? Well, yeah, a couple of times. Obviously, Van der Ven's clearance and Vic did actually make a really good save. But it was just constant threat from them. If they'd have had any striker worth anything at all, they would have won that game quite comfortably on the second half performance.
I didn't mind that we went deep and sat on the 1-0 lead. I think in finals is what the majority of teams will do. What annoyed me was that when we did have the ball, we could have strained two passes together. And I think the idea that we defended particularly well wasn't quite right. United had technically four big chances in that second half, although I wouldn't classify any of them as absolute gimmies. Obviously, the Van der Ven clearance is remarkable. I wanted to ask you, Ricky, because I've yet to see it back. When Udogie played Solanke through, which felt like the only time we was in United's half in the second half, I still haven't seen it back. Bad pass or bad control?
I'm gonna say bad control.
That's what I thought in the
Yeah,
ground. Obviously, I was at the other end.
no, I don't want to dig out Dom, but bad control.
Felt that way because I felt when Udogie had played him in, I think it's 2-0 here.
Yeah,
So, but that don't show up in none of the bloody highlights or anything because he
it,
just
it,
miscontrolled it.
that second half. I mean, there wasn't many highlights from Tottenham's point of view anyway. It was all United attacking, and obviously our heroics with Van der Ven and Vic's really really good save. Um, and at the end, Casemiro with his overhead kick. But yeah, there was virtually nothing, and that's a tale of how the game went. There was nothing from us in that second half at all. I can't remember the exact stats, but it was the passing stats and completed passes. It was something like 200 or 300 more from United, maybe even more
Easy.
than that. And you say you couldn't string two passes. We just couldn't. It was just backs to the wall. And when we did get possession, a wayward pass, play it straight to their player or out. It's almost like they lost all of their composure outside of their own box. Inside their box, there were some really heroic performances. Beyond the 18-yard line, and all composure went.
People might be thinking, if you never watched back the clip, I mean, I've obviously seen key moments from the games, but why am I going to sit through that again? Like it was,
It
like
wasn't.
it wasn't good. And I think I would probably. Ange actually said this himself, didn't he? Ange was asked a couple of days later, and he said, "I'll probably never watch it back because I want to pick holes out in things that we did and stuff." And I think I'll watch it back, and I think I'm just going to be more annoyed than I was actually in the time because you got more time to kind of take a step back and view things in a colder light with your head in the right place. I don't think I'm going to be any happier with what I watch back. So I don't particularly intend to do it.
Well, I'll give you a comparison, James. Somewhere up in my loft, I've got a VHS tape. So that's one for the youngsters, and it's the 1984 UEFA Cup final, Tottenham Anderlecht. And I'm surprised it still works, mate, because when I was growing up, I watched that every weekend. I'd watch that and the full game. I wouldn't skip it. I'd just sit there and I'd watch it time after time. I must have watched it, I don't know, 60, 70 times, maybe even more than that. I won't be watching this game back ever. I watch the highlights, I watch, Brennan's goal, the clearances, whatever else, and when the final whistle. I will never, to my dying day, sit there and watch that 90 minutes of football ever again. I can't do it to myself.
Do you know what? If someone wants to tag me the Udogi and Solanke incident on socials, please do, because it's the only thing that I'm interested in seeing back again that I haven't actually. You mentioned 84, Ricky. Obviously, it was the club's first European trophy for 41 years. How does this rank alongside that? I know obviously you were very young at the time, but you've obviously watched it back a number of times. And all the bits in the middle. How does this rank as an iconic moment for Tottenham winning this European trophy?
It's hard for me. It's hard to. I mean, your dad's someone better to ask than that because he was a grown man. At the time, I was 7 years old and really didn't know what was going on. Um, Looking back on it now with my 48-year-old eyes, the 84 one was possibly a better, well, not possibly, it was a better achievement. The teams in it were stronger for sure. We've had to play some wank teams, let's say, in this one. So we haven't played the absolute best. The UEFA Cup, as it in its original format or its second incarnation, we'll forget the Fairs Cup because that knocks Arsenal out of a European trophy.
Hey,
But the UEFA Cup that was seen as the better competition. Obviously, the European Cup had more prestige, but the better teams played in the UEFA Cup. And that was a fantastic achievement. We had a fantastic team as well, though, to be fair. But yeah, this one, you've seen a lot of fans coming out, and I can't really argue. Oh, it's the first league or first season without the Champions League dropout, so it was easier to win. We didn't make those rules. We just played who we were drawn against, and you look back on it in another 41 years, maybe. Who the hell are Bordeaux? What were they? Who was that? And
a
people
team that
won't.
had us shitting ourselves for a few
Well,
weeks.
exactly. But
But
yeah,
because of how bad we were, more than anything.
yeah, no, absolutely. But it's if you any team, you tell that you've got to be a Bodo Glimt to get into a European final. Yeah, I'll take that. So look, I'm not going to take away anything from the moment. It was um, other than no, do you know what? For me, it's different for me because I wasn't there. This was the best moment for me as a Tottenham fan. I know you're going to say Ajax, and rightly so. You were there. I wasn't. I was in a boozer in Bedford. So this is the best moment for me as a Tottenham fan, and I will remember it for forever and ever and ever. Was it better than '84 in terms of achievement? No, I don't think so.
In my time going, I think of achievement, it's this. Um, but in terms of like the moment, no, I've said this and I said this prior to the final, there's nothing that can happen in this final that will top Ajax in terms of a
Mm.
moment and an emotion and a feeling. And the way the game panned out in Bilbao certainly wasn't going to be that. In terms of achievement, you look back on it and you all the photographs, the pictures with the trophy, all that afterwards, yeah, yeah, of course it is. And I think it tops. It's not hugely bigger to me though than beating Chelsea in '08, and it's not a Chelsea thing. It's just I think it's the whole that team was worth supporting more than this one. That sounds mental, but there isn't a connection, and there hasn't been for a long time now with kind of the players and the stuff like that. That's why Ajax meant more as well. The connection with the manager, the players felt like a huge solidarity, togetherness, whereas Bilbao felt as much about I'm sick of hearing we ain't won a trophy for 17 years. I just need you to end it. It felt as much of that rather than like a. I still think that the connection's not there. Maybe we'll get it back in the next year or so. So I think there's kind of intangibles difficult to explain for people on the outside in terms of the differences in emotions. I think automatically you go, it must be the trophy, and in terms of achievement, it is. But I've had bigger highs elsewhere. The final whistle was great, but the match is, as we discussed, was awful.
It's a terrible match. Absolutely terrible match.
2 days after the match, there's a parade. Over 200,000 people on Tottenham High Road celebrating, and it has swung massively from the manager is definitely getting sacked if we don't win this trophy to the majority of these people probably then want him to stay, particularly after the now very infamous um, season three will be better than season two line. What was your reaction at that moment? Because my reaction was, and I tweeted it straight away, was, well, we've still got Ange next year. like they can't sack him now, basically.
Yeah. Well, I think I touched on it. It might have been on the pod with Gary, and it was for the semi-final for the second leg. I was in a pub in the village with my mate, and sat across or next were two Celtic fans. And my mate he's so I think he hates Levy more than he loves Tottenham. He's so anti-Levy, and therefore he is pro-Ange. And these Celtic fans were massively pro-Ange, and I'm there. So no, he's rubbish. He's got well, not he's rubbish, but I said I can't watch this anymore. He's got to go. What happens if he wins the final? Well, let's see. Let's see. Um, but I said no. He on what I've seen so far up to this point, this is terrible, and it cannot continue. So we're 17th in the table. Blah 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 blah. And I got to we won the final, and my mate turned around to me in the pub, and he goes, "What? Where Ange now?" I said, "Do you know what? He's earned the right to stay. All right, let him stay. He's earned the right." I said, "I don't. If he gets sacked, I'm not going to be bothered about it. If he stays, I won't be bothered. But for me now, he's actually earned that right." And then we had the parade, and I mean the players, they just adore him. They absolutely adore him. Even though even like Basuma, he's given Basuma some pelters in the media,
Mm.
but Basuma still comes out and shows him all the love in the world. There's something about this guy. And I'm still of the same opinion. Look, if he goes, he goes. If he stays, he stays. But he has earned it. And I mean, Levy's standing there, and Levy's doing the applause, and whatever else. And you had Johan Langer there, and he's doing this. I thought they can't get rid of him after that. He's got all of these. He's got the players eating out the palm of his hand. All the fans there, they're cheering, they're singing. They cannot get rid of him, surely. And they did. And I think. No, I don't think. I can pretty much guarantee that we'd have had him. The euphoria from the Europa League would have ended about 10, 15 games in. He'd have been gone by Christmas. And then we've got a new manager coming in, got somebody else's squads. Really hard to bring in players in January. All of the transfer targets that we would have had for the summer that we hadn't got wouldn't be coming in January now that have gone elsewhere. As it was the right decision as a move for the club and the progression of the club. It's 100% the right decision. I understand why people are upset. I get it, but looking at the longer term, it's the right thing to do, and
So
I'll
you're
argue that
essentially
forever.
saying emotionally you'd have kept him,
Yeah,
but when you remove the emotion, you feel like it's the right decision.
absolutely. And we moan, rightly so, about Tottenham being a business and Daniel Levy being a businessman, and he's made a business decision. And whether we like it is irrelevant. As far as the bit Tottenham PLC goes, that is 100% the right thing to do.
100%.
I think so. Yeah, I really do.
100%, I think so.
I think so.
That
Yeah.
ain't 100%,
All
is it?
right, 90% the right thing to do. Look, it's one of the, we'll never prove it either way. If Thomas Frank bombs out in his first 10 games, everyone will say, oh, well, we should have kept Ange. But we don't know what Ange would have done. Well, we do know what Ange would have done. Our league form would have probably carried on. Was it 77 points? Um,
78 from 66.
there you go. I mean, that is woeful, woeful form. That is barely Premier League survival form.
It gets worse, by the way, the closer you do it, because I think it's like 19 from the final 25 and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
and I know, yeah, there are the intangibles, the injuries, the kind of pretty much from February time completely given up on the
Yeah,
league.
and the bottom three being so poor, I'm sure that if we were under more threat from the bottom three, that we'd have put more effort into the league season. And we've talked about the injuries, and yeah, you can't help injuries, but how many of those injuries were caused by his style of play? Once again, we don't know that, but it's very
Yeah,
coincidental that everybody went down with a hamstring. It's ifs and buts, and we will never know the answers. But my feeling. 90%, it is the right thing to do.
all I can say is in Bilbao, I wanted to, and I know this, I wanted to see him with the trophy more than anybody else. Because as much as I'd become indifferent about it, and I think I was someone who probably stuck by Ange more than others did. And I was still kind of at the point, even then, thinking this is probably going to be the end. Even knowing it in that moment was like, yeah, he deserves it. I want to see him give the middle finger to people and say, yeah, do you know what? I said. I said I always win shit in my second season, and I
Yeah.
did. And it's a cold statement that will live in the history of our football club. now, mate. No, literally, no one's ever going to forget it. So he delivered. And I think, therefore, exactly what you said, the emotion, therefore, was like, emotionally, I feel like he deserves it on this,
Yeah.
on this. And then I'm in the ground on Sunday, and I know they were pissed out their heads against Brighton. But again, like it was so bad. And it was, I don't know, no one cared. And it was still like Brighton scored their fourth, and the whole crowd was like jumping up and down, still waving their flags. It was like, come on, get the trophy out now. Like it was such a weird vibe. But you are looking, you're thinking, God, I was thinking, A, we are a massive football club. But B, I was thinking, God, this is terrible. How many times am I going to sit through this? And I could never shake the feeling that if he did stay, it would end like you said. It wouldn't be like season three was better than season two. I don't think it would have been.
I don't think it would have been.
That said, it couldn't be worse than season two. It's also worth saying
Well,
in terms of
it
the
could have been,
league
mate.
season.
We could have gone from 17th to 18th, which look, it wouldn't have happened. But I'm glad it's happened this way, right? So the managers we've lost in recent years, Mourinho, well, he can suck all the dicks. I don't give a fuck about him. Conte,
Similar.
similar in all honesty. Nuno, you know what? No, nothing bad to say about Nuno. He wasn't given a chance. Ange, he leaves a legend. He leaves a hero. He leaves with a trophy. He leaves with his head held high. Those next 10 games could have changed all of that. And whereas Mourinho and Conte and that, I hope they fall into a ditch somewhere. I can't stand them. And I hope that whatever he does next, he's a massive success. I wish him all, as long as it's not managing an English team beating us, but wherever he goes in the world, all the luck to him, all the success, and I hope he wins and carries on winning trophy after trophy. Nothing but nice things about the bloke. I just don't like his football.
It it won't be an English team though, will it, Ricky?
Well, it looks like he's on the way to Saudi.
Is
And
that
it won't
right?
be an
Is it?
English team because would you appoint
Well, well,
a
this is the
league
point, isn't
man
it?
that gets 17th in the league?
This is the point. I think the key things for me is one, would any other Premier League club, i.e. Brentford, now looking for a manager, would Brentford consider appointing him? It's like, no, no. So if Brentford wouldn't look at it and go, well, do you want to consider appointing the guy that just won a European trophy? And again, no. The biggest thing of all for me, though, is I reflect, and I said this on other pods about it's just who we are, mate. You know, after the high line against Chelsea, the nine men on the halfway line. It's like, do you know what? Yeah, this is brave. It's balls out. And at the time, it was acceptable. It was like, I like this. But then who we are hasn't been there for a very, very long time. Ultimately, he didn't believe in his own philosophy to win the trophy.
Exactly. I said that, and I probably said it because I heard it. I heard you say it on a pod. But we haven't played anything that even resembles Ange Ball since October last year. So you're talking the best part of 7, 8 months. Um, and now he's adapted, and fair play because we were saying one thing he
Praise
never
him for
does is
that.
adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not criticizing him in that moment, by the way. I praise him for changing because I
absolutely.
agree. I don't think his ball would have won the trophy.
No. So he did adapt. It's still his in-game management was still, I mean, poor at best, non-existent is possibly a fairer assumption. But yeah, he adapted that, and we got a brand of football that we don't really reckon, or we haven't seen, apart from under Mourinho. It was terrible. It was dire. We still couldn't defend, and we just stopped scoring goals. It was awful, awful, awful football. But if he didn't believe that his philosophy can actually win a trophy, that he's given everything to, sacrificed everything else for this one thing, and he's still not going to use his philosophy, then his philosophy is dead. And so what when you get him as a manager, you've got no idea what you're getting because he doesn't know what he's going to do next.
Do you think if Ange had stayed, do you think we would have got more of this next season? Just Ange Ball would be dead and we become this counter-attacking team, or do you think he'd have just gone back to?
I think, well, depending on the fitness of the players, obviously the player or most of the or some of the players have got a break. There's lots of nonsense football going on around the world, friendlies and Gold Cup and Copa America, whatever else. Depending on the fitness levels of the players, I think you'd have gone back to it. But how long before those players would have broken down, and we'd have to resort back to
Well,
what we had
probably
for the last 7 months.
you almost know what it is, don't you? You almost depend on the fixtures, which obviously be out on Wednesday. But I can imagine Tottenham under Ange next season, 5, 7 points, something fairly nice from the first 3 or 4 games. maybe more towards 2 points per game, and then Champions League starts in September. Massive problem.
Yeah. See,
That's what it would have been. He's
it,
proven, unfortunately, he can't at the top level manage a team under his style and philosophy that's going to
no,
play 3 games a week. Can't
no,
do it.
and we got away with that because we gave up on the league in what February time-ish when the champion. And it's going to be a slog in the Champions League. We're not going to have the easy teams we had in the Europa League, so we're going to have to be at our best for every one of them group games to qualify. So what does that mean? We're giving up on the league from October, November time? Then we're in trouble. Then we're
You
in
can't next year because it's
big
not like we'll
trouble.
win the Champions League, is it? It's hard.
Exactly. But there's got to be pressure because that's where the money is. So there's be pressure to qualify for the next stage at least. Yeah, I'd say for a number of reasons it was the right thing to do, and I will defend it. People aren't happy. People turning in their season ticket and asking for refunds on it because of what's happened.
I don't know if these people did these people go last year.
Well, it must be their first season ticket because they haven't sat through all of that. Because if you actually want to sign up and pay your hard-earned money, what a season ticket at Tottenham, the cheapest one you're going to get now is about 1,500 quid for a normal bloke. You want to spend that to watch that? That's you've
I,
some kind of sadist. You
I
really are.
I referenced the game against Villa, which I'd said I thought was that sort of late of October. We won 4-1 and we give them a hiding in the second half from 1-0 down. And I said it's kind of like the last time I really felt like it was kind of like true Ange ball for like a sustained sort of 20-minute period or so. It was actually the first weekend in November. You know how many home league games we won from there onwards?
I don't, but I know you're going to tell me.
So
Two
6 months.
home league games
It's
in
more than
six
6 months,
months.
isn't it? Yeah. One of them Southampton. Feels like it doesn't even really count. And what
No.
was the other one? The only other team we could bloody beat all season,
Oh,
Manchester
United.
United.
Yes, United, and that was on a split decision as well.
Well, and United turned up, had no subs bench that
Yeah,
day. Literally had to play an 11 for 90 minutes, basically.
yeah,
So, I mean, yeah, 2 home league wins in 6 months.
yep. Let's keep
Yeah,
him.
yeah. How did you emotionally feel? When the news broke on the Friday, it was like there was a few journalists kind of reported it was like, yeah, it's definitive now. And then the news came out sort of like half hour later. How did you feel in that moment?
The overriding feeling for me was relief, and not
Yeah,
relief that he had gone, just relief that a decision had been made, because it was 2 weeks between us lifting that trophy and this decision being made. And I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm watching other players or other teams sign players. I know that it was for the World Club Cup and it wasn't teams in and around us. But I said, yeah, deals being done, deals being done. When are we can't sign anybody because we don't know who the manager's going to be, or at least it hasn't been announced. So it was just the relief. Right now, we can kick on with our pre-season, sort out who's coming in, sort out, which players are coming, which players are going. And yeah, I felt sorry for Ange. I felt positive though about the club and about the decision, but it was just relief. Yeah, finally, all the nonsense talk is over. We know where we're heading.
who did you want to replace Ange? Did you have someone in mind? You were like, yeah, that's the one.
Well, yeah,
I,
Luis Enrique.
yeah, you and me both. But other than the dreaming bit, Ricky,
Look, of who were presented as options. So we're talking Frank, Glasner, um, Silva,
Iriola.
um, Iriola. I I liked Glasner, but necessarily didn't necessarily like his formation. I don't think I don't want to watch a back three or back five, yeah, three centre backs. Um, Iriola's football, I thought, was the best football, but it's too close to Ange's football, and we've already seen that our players can't cope with that kind of football on a long-term basis. Marco Silva, I've just never been sold on him. He's got a lot of fans, and he gets a lot of positivity, but I've just never seen what other people see with him. I've never watched one of his teams and thought, wow, what a team that is. Wherever he's gone, he's done a solid job. He's done well, but he's never blown me away. So my process of elimination, it would have been Frank. And um, the thing that attracted me most to him was his in-game management, which is better than I think the other candidates. and probably the best of who was a viable option for us, unless we'd have gone and plucked somebody that we'd never heard of from somewhere on the continent. I like that and for the first time since Nuno, we've gone and got a manager with Premier League experience. I know that Conte and Mourinho managed before, but they'd had lengthy periods away.
They're in the winner now bracket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is, and it aligns with what we've been doing transfer wise for the last couple of years with the signing of young players. It's a project manager. It's someone he's going to see these young players, the Archie Grays, the Bergvals, Mikey Moores, and hopefully more of the youth team. He's going to see them through, hopefully, the next 4 or 5 years of their development and turn them into really, really fantastic players, as he's done with Brentford. The the only thing I'm hoping is obviously he gets given time by the fans and by the board, but also that I don't know, pinch all of Brentford scouts or use an analytics model or whatever else, just to try and identify some of those players so he can work as he's worked. It may be that he has to do it with the youth team as opposed to, bringing in them kind of players. I don't think many Tottenham fans are going to be interested in us signing a striker from the French second division. It may turn out to be brilliant in 4 or 5 years, but that's not going to fly for now. So I think developing the youth players, which he's got a proven track record of doing. Obviously, he cut his teeth managing the Danish youth sides, under 14s, 15s, etc. And he's got a really, really strong foundation of working with younger players at Brentford. So that very easy to say now, looking back, that he was my number one target, but he wouldn't have been someone I'd have handpicked out of everybody available. But of the realistic options, he was the one I would have gone for.
Massive jump though, isn't it? Massive.
Yeah,
Look
it
at someone
is.
like Silvango who's got experience managing Everton, Glasner, Frankfurt. These are big football clubs. With all due respect, Brentford fans know what they are. It was a small football club who's done incredibly well to be at this level and feel like they're part of the furniture now. And Thomas Frank is a big reason for that. It is a massive jump though, Ricky, isn't it? None of us really know if this can work or not.
No, and something, it was Johan Visser. They got some quotes off of him talking about Thomas Frank coming to Tottenham. And he was going, one of the things they don't have at Brentford is egos. There's nobody in that dressing room who has an ego. And he goes, he goes, I think he can manage egos, but we don't know. He's never had an ego. And there's some egos in that Tottenham dressing room. The likes of Jed Spence maybe need to just sit there and shut up and listen. Because if he starts doing his Jed Spence things, he probably won't find himself anywhere near the team. But yeah, managing the egos, obviously, bigger club, everything is bigger. And no disrespect to Brentford, but everything at Tottenham is bigger. So it'll be interesting to see. But everything that I hear is points in the direction that he's ready for this step and that he can take this step. And he was very, very well. Apparently, he was that close to getting the job over on a slot for Liverpool. He was very, very high on Chelsea's list of
Frank was
managers.
considered for the Liverpool job.
He apparently
Is that right?
he was that close before Slot come in. Yeah, really,
Wow, I've
really
never
close.
heard that.
Yeah, I only heard it a couple of days ago, and look, some of it may be lazy journalism. I don't know, but that's what I've heard. Yeah, very high on the list to take over before Maresca got the job at Chelsea. So big teams, and I think he was being considered for United as well. I think he was quite favoured over there. How close he was to ever getting the job, I don't know. But
That's
yeah, he's been big clubs, yeah, really big clubs have been looking at him prior to us going in for him. So other people feel that he's either ready or he's very, very close to being ready.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think most people, if they removed the emotion of Tottenham winning the trophy, would have said like Ange Paul's not going to work. And most people seem to be of the opinion that it's a good appointment. Although I don't know on the outside quite what people think they or imagine they want Tottenham to be or think Tottenham should be. I also note why I always say 98% of football fans don't know what they're talking about. So when the masses, it's like correspondent week. Every time all the correspondents go, yeah, Tottenham are locked in for top four this year, we have a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
So we might be in for a good one because no one's going to tip that up this summer, I presume, Ricky. What's a good season for Tottenham look like now under Frank then. The style's obviously going to be really different. I think one of his strengths is adaptability, but we don't know, for example, how he'll be in terms of managing a team and you're playing against a low block and you're going to have probably more of the ball than Brentford would average in certain games, etc. What does a good season for Tottenham next year look like? Because there will be a certain element of the fan base, if it doesn't win a trophy, will think that next season is worse than the one we've just had.
Yeah, and there will be, and they're the Tottenham fans that I really
I
don't want to
booked I
listen to.
booked Budapest, by the way, just so.
You are an optimist. Yeah, look, if any Tottenham fans actually think that not winning a trophy next year is somehow worse, then maybe find another team. Because look, in my lifetime, we do not have a habit of winning trophies. All right, they come along very, very infrequently. They're not a God-given right for us. And even, and I'm talking about when we were one of the legitimate biggest teams in the country. We now are in terms of finances and whatever else, but there's teams that are much, much bigger. Certainly in terms of attractiveness and what they can bring in, and therefore what they can put on the pitch. There's four trophies available every year. If you're in Europe, forget about the Champions League. We're obviously not going to win that. You can pretty much write, well, not pretty much. You can write the league off. We're not going to win that. So we're looking at the FA Cup and the League Cup. The Tottenham fans that still back Ange will say that the League Cup is a failure. That's not as good as Europa League. So therefore, you're looking at the FA Cup really, and many would argue as well that winning the Europa League is actually better than winning the FA Cup. Although the competition to win the FA Cup is much stronger.
Europa
Um,
League carries a bigger prize,
it does carry a
ultimately.
bigger prize, yeah. In prestige, maybe the FA Cup, but you certainly got to beat harder. You
I
got to
don't
beat
think
harder
so.
teams.
Not anymore. I think that might have been the case, and not now, I don't think.
Unfortunately, you probably are right. But it shouldn't be the case. But yeah. So look, winning a trophy. No, I'm not going to judge Thomas Frank on winning a trophy. I don't want to be 17th again, which I bet pretty much everything I've got that will finish at least 16th. We'll go one better, but it's
It
the
can't be that though, can it, Ricky? Because if Tottenham do, truthfully, if Tottenham finish 14th, 15th, 16th, Thomas Frankie's not going to be managing Tottenham the next season, is he?
no, of course he's not. But the I want to enjoy watching us again. So the style of football is going to be really, really important. I want to see some of these younger players be brought into the team. There's we had obviously Mikey Moore has been given some game time sporadically. He had a couple of issues that we can't talk about, or at least the press can't
We
talk
might have
about.
unfortunately got another bad one playing for England under 19s on
Yeah.
Saturday. That he could well have some ankle ligament damage, unfortunately.
Yeah, so we'll see on that one. But the young boys come on against Elfsborg and were barely given a sniff again after that. So I want to see some youth development, but just some players getting better. We said it about Mourinho, and I'm going to say it again about Ange really. Um, who has turned into a better player in the last 2 years? I've only really seen regression rather than improvement. Um, which is kind of unfortunate. I just want to see players in their own position, playing the best that they can be, defensively better. We've conceded 60 goals plus in the last two seasons. That's that's terrible. The first season we kind of got away with it because we were scoring a lot more. This
It's
season we
terrible as well, by the way, just to acknowledge, because I think if you said to most Tottenham fans, like the back four that played in the final of Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, if you said to any Tottenham fan, dash your back four opening day next season, they go, yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
Be
I'd
like
take
happy
that. I
with
think
that.
that for me is one of the better back fours in the Premier League. It's a brilliant back four. Yeah, it gives you everything that you need. The defensive wall in Romero, the speed with Van der Ven, um, Porro's attacking abilities, Udogie. Yeah, all right, bit of pace. He's not as he hasn't found his attacking potential maybe, but it's a brilliant back four. Vic worries me a little bit. There's a lot of mistakes creeping into him since he came back into the team after his injury. That's a bit of a cause for concern. Um, Something I did look at the other day. Brentford, so Flecken essentially had or what the Brentford team, but there was 100 more goalkeeper passes from Brentford than any other team in the league. So the goalkeeper is heavily involved in the build-up play, which is a little bit worrying maybe because we've seen that Vic can be a bit susceptible from a back pass, and that they also no team had more touches in their own box than Brentford last year. So
Don't know if that's good.
I don't know if that's good. It's a nod to that they know how to do that because of Ange Ball, but yeah, we looked with so many times we had our hearts in our mouths with Ben Davis playing the ball back to Vic and whoever was
I
there, you
think we'll
know.
be a bit more direct from the goalkeeper. I think that's fair to
Yeah,
say. And in the
I hope
target,
so.
like Solanke should be. But actually, what Brentford did a lot of the time as well is diagonals into fullbacks and stuff. Um, whereas Tottenham, you haven't seen do that over the last 2 years because the fullbacks are normally in central midfield, so could never do that basically. Okay. I think yeah, it clearly it's got to be a lot better. I think ultimately my target for next year is Tottenham have got to be in Europe in the 26-27 season.
Yeah,
That that
I'm not gonna put my neck on a block and say we need to be finishing top four,
no no no.
qualifying for Europe through the league. So whether that be top seven, top eight, that for me is the goal. If we can do that and then build on from that.
However that's done, what I would say is this social experiment of a season, we've now put to, because it's a regular question you used to get, right? Would you take finishing 17th and winning this? Da, 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 da. Right, I've done it now. And I can tell you that social experiment wasn't that enjoyable until the end. However, Thomas, if you're listening, I will take 17th now if you deliver the Champions League. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question about that at all.
We'll take that. Yeah, look, however it's done, listen, it's not going to be via the Champions League. Tottenham need to be targeting being in European competition the next year. Even if
Yeah.
there's just a conference league, it's got to be get back to into that
Yeah.
top level of competing with the what we are, part of the big six clubs, if you will. Couple of things to finish with, Ricky. Matisse Tell, we are pre-recording this on Sunday. Matisse Tell confirmed signing on permanently this morning. Happy with that?
Yeah, I am. I saw enough of him, certainly in the latter part of the season. When he first come in, he looked a bit lightweight and struggled to adapt to the pace. Towards the end of the season, yeah, he really got it. He come on really, really well. Um, he can play a variety of positions, which is going to be really, really helpful for us. Don't think he's going to be that effective down the middle, which is where he has played at certain times. I don't think he's ready for that in the Premier League yet. But no, I think what's he 19? Looks like the final fee is anywhere. Well, I think what we've paid is 30, and as you said before we started recording, that may also you may have to add on to that the 10
Big
million
loan
pound
fee.
loan fee. So we're looking at somewhere between 30 and 40 million. I think that's a bit low risk. I like that. There's sell on potential if it doesn't work out for him. But yeah, no, I'm happy with that one. I'm hoping that doesn't stop us signing. Well, that's what. So we've got three now that are kind of vying for a place on the left. But maybe Sonny, maybe that signals the end of Sonny potentially.
Keep yourself here.
Nothing to keep him for now, mate. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Sonny was very vocal about that. He didn't want to leave Tom until he'd won a trophy. He wanted to leave as a legend. He absolutely does that. I think he's our fifth all-time leading goal scorer in the history of the club. As somebody that even the the most ardent Tottenham haters would struggle to say something negative about Sonny the person. Fantastic human being leaves as the captain that lifted our European Cup. But that said, the best of him is definitely gone. If we can still command a fee for him, and I think us giving him that extension kind of nods towards that. We've given ourselves a little bit of backup with that. Talk of big money coming in from Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I think the time's right.
We don't know if he wants to go. I think what I would say is Heung-Min's son will be remembered much more fondly by Tottenham fans as well if he goes now. People will get frustrated about it again. I think next season it's the right time, and I don't even think it needs to be big money. I said this last week. I think just let him go.
Oh,
Just
if
let him
we
go
if
because
we
he's on
can,
monster salary and stuff as
yeah,
well. Let him go.
is our highest paid player. If we can get big money, then brilliant. But that
Oh, of
shouldn't be a
course.
blocker to letting him go.
Yeah, if
Um,
Tottenham would, like, well, I don't know what they expect. They expect like 40, 50 million or something. Like, I don't see it personally at his age now. You know, anything between sort of 10 and 20, which is effectively like giving it away now. Yeah, cool. Thanks
yeah,
very much.
yeah,
Loving
yeah.
it. Proper legend. And I hope it gets just,
Gotcha.
if he goes now, it'll just get remembered as that. All those frustrations I've had over the last couple of years of him be gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Romero.
Sorry, just touch on, just go back to Sonny very, very briefly. We talked about egos. I don't think, well, he hasn't got an ego, and if he does stay, I think he would be very willing to accept that he's going to be a bit part player coming off from the bench. I
Yeah,
don't
possibly.
see that being he's not going to stamp on
Nah.
people's toes saying I need to be in the team. So if he stays, he can still do something for us, but he's not a starter anymore. Really, really isn't. Romero, I've been torn with this guy for a long, long time. He is magnificent. Brilliant, brilliant defender. He's also got as just as much ability to cost you a game as he's got to win you one. Always been torn by him. I think it's very clear from some of the stuff that he said in the media recently. He's in his mind he's gone, or at least wanting to go. So by that, yeah, if you don't want to be there, then brilliant. You know, your last game for us, you were magnificent. Thank you very much for all that you've done. Wish you the best. Let's get 60, 70 million pound for you.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be the right time for Tottenham to sell, personally.
Yeah. The only, well, not the only, but is he wants to go to Atletico. Atletico don't have the kind of money of your Barca's and your, well, Barca ain't got any money, but they don't have the spending power of Barcelona, Real Madrid. They're trying to lowball it, hopefully getting him for about 35 to 40. Levy ain't going to take that. So,
No, it might do next summer, but he's not like 1 year left on his contract. You ain't getting him for that.
yeah.
Forget it.
So Romero could be one that becomes a problem, whereas he ends up staying where he doesn't want to be because Atletico haven't or won't spend the money to please Levy.
Yeah. Okay. On Levy, as a kind of final note, there is some speculation within Tottenham circles that there could even be a change of chairman during the course of this summer. I have to say it's not getting reported in worldwide media or public main publications anywhere. There's a little speculation of it within the Tottenham community. But let's assume that he stays because that's the most likely outcome, Ricky. Do the protests against him continue or not?
I can't at the minute. I can't answer that because we haven't spent any money in the summer. If we Thomas Frank is a list of players, or we hijack and Buemo from United, or we go and get Eze, or whatever, then it's just another example where Levy has actually spent the money, and it's now up to the manager to use those players effectively. And Levy, look, since we got to the Champions League final, there's only three clubs in world football that have spent more money than Tottenham.
Net
He
spend.
does spend the money. We're not going to say he spends it well, but he does spend the money. So I mean, what I don't know what more do you want other
Well,
than
there's a
wages?
huge
He's
problem with
got to spend it on
salaries at the
wage. Yeah,
moment.
wages are the big thing. Um, the protest, let's see how much we spend. Let's see what the season starts like. If we're um, if we're mid-table and looking a bit shabby, then yeah, I expect the protest to start up again. There's been a lot of changes. It's not just leaving. There's been a lot of changes at boardroom level. I can't remember his full name, so I'll just call him Vic. He's come in. He's very, very well regarded.
Vichai was at Arsenal.
Vichai, yeah.
Yeah,
He's very, very well regarded in world football. I believe from what I saw on social media, he's already reached out to the Tottenham
he
Supporters Trust
has. Yeah,
to say, what, can we work together? What can we do to make your experiences better? And that's brilliant. We've never had that before. We've never had a board member who's done something like that. The trust have always actually been quite vocal in the fact that they get no communication from the club. So that is a real, real positive step. And maybe it's a sign that Levy has looked at these protests. He would have heard them and seen them clearly. And maybe he's
There's
thinking, I've
there's
got to
there's
do something different.
little things that were done at the end of the season that mean something to
The
people.
scarves and the
Yeah, I
flag.
mean, even I know it was only 400 or so, but the 400 or so that were in Norway all got given like a scarf in the ground, right?
Yeah.
The flags and the displays before the Bodo game and stuff like that. Even the stuff that was done before the final as well looked good. So there was definitely something at the end, like a poll just for what was happening in Europe and stuff. But you've got to kind of, when you've got that positive energy within a football club, you've got to bottle it and do something about it
Yeah.
because all the rest of it has just been so negative. I think ultimately, Ricky, you summed that up well, but I think it will continue. I think the disparity in the statistics, like people who are pro Levy will point out to the statistic you'd mentioned about, and I'm not saying you're pro Levy, that the net spend since 2019. But then an anti-Levy person is going to point out that, well, you're paying 42% of your revenue on salaries, which is like the lowest essentially in top level European football, right? So yes, there's a spend, but on transfer fees, not on salaries to
Wages. Yeah.
attract the very best players. So you are again, you're investing a lot of that money in younger talent, etc., etc. And listen, hopefully with the likes of you Grays, Bergvals, Luka Vuskovic is a name to keep an eye on, that they'll progress through. And yeah, great. But Tottenham have now got to push these salaries higher, or you're never going to be able to start with Bumo at the moment. I'll eat my hat if we buy him, right? Because I know what United are offering and Tottenham won't offer him anywhere near that, right?
Well, I was listening to Last Word on Spurs, which I know isn't your most favourite podcast, but they do get some good journalists on there that have got much more in the know information than obviously I've got, and they're saying that we haven't made an official bid, but we've spoken to Brentford and we've sounded them out about a £70 million bid. Now United offered 55, I think it was, with add-ons. Brentford have said that they want 62, to match what Cunha got. We've got in there with 70. Now, so leave if that's a serious going to be turned into a serious bid, then he is serious about getting him, right? Deadly serious. But we know that United are going to offer him about twice what we're going to offer him in wages, legitimately twice. So yeah, it'll be, is he going to spend the money on wages? That's going to be the key thing. And if he goes down the same route of big transfer fee, piss poor wages, the fan base will well, I say turn. It's not that they've turned already, but they will continue to protest.
Do you want, though, as it stands, do you want Tottenham to buy someone like Brian Bumo and him to walk in the door as the highest earner at the football club?
No, I don't think he deserves to be the highest earner at the football
Well,
club.
that's his
But
problem, isn't it?
is that his problem though? He would be the highest earner purely because Levy hasn't given enough money to other players in the past. That's not his fault. He's demanding wages that are comparable with what players of his ability are getting. We don't pay that to other players. So that's not an Mbeumo problem. What my absolute ideal is, and it's never going to happen in a million years. Levy leaves as chairman. Somebody else comes in who says, I will spend what it needs to be to get this team where it needs to be. But Levy, you can sit in that chair over there and you just go and manage commercial deals because you're the best in the world at doing that. And that's my absolute ideal. Will it happen? Of course it won't because we're Tottenham. But Levy as a businessman is phenomenal. How he got us in. I know the Super League was a farce, but the fact that he got us in a conversation to be in the Super League is amazing. That in itself is astounding, and that's Levy putting strings in the background. And some of the commercial deals he's done, he's a brilliant businessman. He just needs to recognise that what he wants to pay and what football now demands people are paid are very, very different, and he's got to move up, just even a little bit. But until he does that, we're always going to be signing our second and third choice players because that they're happy to come in on that wage.
Ricky, thank you so much, my friend. I'd say you good luck for the new season, but I'll speak to you before it comes around. Correspondent week obviously starts August the 4th. And anyway, we've got the same amount of luck wished for here. Anything you want to plug before we finish?
Just Planet FPL. Get I have been bombarded with podcasts this week from you. Loads of great content out there that people that aren't up to Patreon won't be receiving. Some really, really good stuff. So get in, at least on intermediate or beginner level, but getting advanced, and you'll get loads of really, really good podcasts.
I've not paid Ricky to say that, but thanks, mate. Cheers, much appreciated. I do apologise for continuing to bombard people with content. I've got more for you tomorrow. Our Crystal Palace correspondent, Rory McLaughlin-Dowd, is going to be joining us to discuss Palace's own success. Obviously, first ever major trophy won with the FA Cup after they beat Manchester City. We'll be talking what's going on behind the scenes as well, with concerns that they might not be able to play European football next season. I'd also like to give a message from Ricky's door, which says, "Piss off, I'm busy." Thanks for that, Ricky. It's for benefit of those on the audio. Ricky's got his door in the background that says, is as a message on it says, "Piss off, I'm busy." It's probably how Daniel Levy feels about things. Ricky, thank you very much. Say it, my friend.
Champions of Europe, come on, Tottenham.
Cue music, please, man, child.